Summertime is in full swing, covering most of the U.S., but actually not all of the U.S. is seeing summertime weather today. But those that are, the combination of heat, in the east a lot of humidity, and there's some scattered thunderstorms around, even a few patches of severe weather. That's all going to be discussed in such incredible detail tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show, brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York. Load up the truck with mulch, topsoil, and sand, and whatever else you need to make your home look terrific. 631-756-1125 for the best prices in town. The website is
OmniTrueValue.com.
And Tempest by WeatherFlow, the revolutionary Tempest weather system. Get it. Enjoying the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. I only got to 78 for a high today here in Northeast Georgia.
Oh,
yes. You can click the link. It's on the descriptor to this video, and it will be on the chat board shortly, pinned to the very top. And if you use the coupon code Joe and Joe Weather Show, Joe Rayo, what will they get?
You'll get 10% off. How can you not take advantage of such an offer? Remember, it's Joe and Joe Weather Show. We're 10% off at Tempest.
That's correct. All right. Computer's just being a little temperamental here, so let me get this out of the way and get me in here. And there we are. So, haven't seen it happen too often this summer so far, but finally saw a bunch of 90-degree readings pretty much up and down the eastern seaboard. I saw a 96, I think, at Trenton. I think that was the hot spot.
The hot spot, well, the high temperature here in Putnam Valley at 340 this afternoon, 93 degrees. I've not seen a temperature that warm or that hot going back to the heat that we had, believe it or not, in April. We had to wait until July to match the temperatures that we had back in April. But there you go, 93 today, and I suspect, Joe, we're going to have another similarly hot day, at least up here, for tomorrow.
Yes, and the humidity is not going to be going anywhere, probably for the next 5 days. I'm starting to lean toward the idea that later Sunday into Sunday night, there could be a sizable round of downpours and thunderstorms, and maybe even a little bit of severe weather with this next weather front coming along and just deciding to get hung up again. And then there's a little wave that's going to rotate around and lift up to the northeast. Could be bullish for rainfall amounts.
Yeah, we may very well have to deal with wet weather in one way, shape, or form from Saturday through next Wednesday. Well, actually, Saturday through Tuesday. Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Wednesday, hopefully we'll be able to squeeze on by without any precipitation. But before all this wet weather comes, we've got another hot one coming our way for tomorrow, and maybe not quite so hot, but at least it looks like a dry day for the most part on Friday. And then things will change toward, again, as you just mentioned, Joe, a series of wet days. And some of those days, some of that precipitation could come down rather heavily, particularly if we involved a bit of convection in the form of thunderstorms.
Yep. So this is going to be a little bit of a short show tonight. We're going to wrap it up at 8 o'clock just to let everybody know. And we've got the surface map up. Kind of in no man's land. There's you have to go hundreds of miles between isobars, which is a little unusual. But there's an isobar that runs across southeastern Canada, well north of the U.S. border, and then you have to go all the way down. There's a little closed 1016 isobar in West Virginia, and then there's an isobar right along the Carolina coastline or just offshore the Carolina coastline, and that's it, which means that heat that happened today in much of the Northeast did not come with much of the way of wind. I mean, there must have been hardly a breath of wind all day long.
Another thing that I noticed was that the skies were, not a deep blue color, but they were blue. We didn't have any haze and we didn't have any smoke to deal with. It was lovely to just, admittedly, It was hot, it was humid, but of course, it's also the 5th of July, so what else do you expect at this time of the year? But at least we didn't have to deal with the smaze, the smoke that we've been dealing with in recent days around here, primarily because of the fact that, well, we're in kind of an opening in the overall smoke zone. It looks like
All right.
most of the smoke is now more to the west and west northwest of us, as opposed to what we've been dealing with, in recent days and weeks.
Well, the only exception to that, and it didn't have to do with the wildfire smoke, but it had to do with all the fireworks they set off yesterday.
You know
Uh,
that it's absolutely correct. Now that I've been made aware of the website that gives you the air quality index, I said, just for the heck of it, let's see what the story is. And right after the Macy's fireworks had ended, I checked out places in Manhattan and places that, all around Manhattan that, had the smoke from those fireworks. And whereas, let's say, New York City had anywhere from like 125 to 185, you didn't have to go very far. I mean, up where I was in Garrison, New York, which is a stone's throw to my south, 15.
yeah.
So if you had, depending upon what kind of fireworks you had in your neighborhood or in your city, you either had not so great air quality because of the smoke, or you had very good air quality.
And they do shoot off a lot of fireworks, and not just the ones that are done professionally, but even the non-professionals go a little crazy on the 4th of July in New York
So
City.
how come, Joe,
Yes.
if the air quality deteriorates so significantly in the wake of all of those fireworks, because we did see on our TV screens, for example, all the airborne smoke.
Right.
Well, how come we didn't see any warnings in advance and prior to the fireworks display, noting?
Honestly, I now that after the fact, I remembered that this has happened before. So I just think maybe everybody just forgot. It's such a one-off type event that I just forgot about it. And then I remembered when I saw posts this morning, and as you said, checking out the air quality. And then the Weather Service did have air quality alerts up this morning for the leftover smoke from the fireworks. So I guess it was in hindsight that nobody thought ahead of time, and must have slipped everybody's mind.
I mean, if it was a tip, let's say it was July 19th, and the air quality index for New York City was 185. Guarantee you that would have been, unless there was some kind of another type of an atrocity going on, guaranteed that would have been the number one story on all of the local newscasts. Well, the air quality is bad again. It's up to 185. Last night, in the wake of the fireworks, it was 185, and nobody talked about it. Everybody just said, "Oh, fa la 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 la! What a wonderful fireworks!"
Exactly. Everybody was in party mood.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So for those of you who are asking on the chat board, when is this humidity going away? Well, it's not going away anytime soon. However, if you can manage to get a flight, you can fly out to the plains, because it is actually quite cool. This is at 5 o'clock this afternoon Eastern time. Across the Dakotas, most of the temperatures are in the 60s. Same goes for Nebraska. Now, there's a lot of clouds here, too, in a lot of these areas. But areas up in northeastern Colorado were down in the 50s earlier today, and they're only in the low 60s. It's nice weather. Temperature-wise, it's a little warmer when you get down into a little further south, close to the frontal boundary line across Kansas, mid-70s to low 80s, and low 80s in northern Missouri, 70s in Iowa, 70s, low 70s up in Minnesota and Wisconsin. That's got to feel good. And as I said, my high today was only 78 because it rained. It was raining on and off until about, I'd say 2 o'clock this afternoon, and then it went mostly sunny, and by that time it was too late for the daytime heating. This weather front is going to be reaching the East Coast on Friday. Now, I don't know that there's going to be a whole lot with it in terms of showers and thunderstorms. It's a little tricky, but we'll get into that momentarily. Here's the latest satellite loop. Or it will be the latest satellite loop once the refresh I'm doing is over with. And, there's some organized severe weather near that frontal boundary down through Illinois and extending into Arkansas and Go a little further south, Joe, across the Gulf states. There's little clusters of showers and thunderstorms, and there are a few pockets here and there where we've seen a few places have severe thunderstorm warnings, but nothing widespread. This is just more typical in terms of the development here across the South on a given day. Beautiful out in the west. The Northeast, skywise, is nice. Now, there are a few pop-ups that occurred well up into upstate New York and also in parts of easternmost Maine. But other than that, in the Northeast and Northern Mid-Atlantic states, it was a quiet day. And as you said, it'll probably be a repeat performance tomorrow.
Yes, and for those people who are asking, at least in the local New York City area, about when is the humidity going away, I just looked at the tabular GFSX, the extended outlook for the next 7 days, just to see what the dew points were on that listing through next Tuesday. The average, taken into account all of the next 7 days, the average dew point temperature, 67.7, which means it's verging on, and there will be a few days where the dew points will be at or around 70. So if you're looking for any kind of relief, if you're hoping for a nice surge of dry, cool, especially dry Canadian air in the foreseeable future, it ain't happening.
Yeah.
I don't know about the heat. The heat, yeah. I mean, we had a hot one today. It'll be another hot one tomorrow. Maybe not quite so hot on Friday. But if you're looking for relief from humidity, it ain't happening, at least for the next week and probably even a bit beyond.
There's your northeast loop. You can see the clouds in North and South Carolina with some thunderstorms there. By the way, if those of you who might peruse some of the Weather Service websites, something must have happened there yesterday because various tools are not working and have not been fixed yet. For example, the National Digital Forecast maps, which I like to use, that hasn't been updated since Monday. And usually those things are updated like every hour. So that's not working. Some of the satellite loops, some of the specialized satellite loops, like the lightning strikes on some of these regional satellite loops that we have, are not working either. So I guess the holiday, the people who fix these things must have all went on vacation at the same time. It's just like when Environmental Canada years ago, Joe, when they would go, when something would break. I'm trying to remember what year it was, but it was sometime in the early 2000s where something broke with the processing of the Canadian model, and it happened right before the Christmas holidays, and it wasn't the entire Environmental Canada's website was down for like 5 weeks because they had to wait for everybody to come back from vacation.
That's crazy.
Yeah, well, I doubt if that was years ago. I doubt that'll happen today. There are your storms. A couple of cells up the northway in upstate New York. Maybe a little thunderstorm there near Saratoga. Not ready for racing there yet. It's still a couple of weeks early. Showers and storms in eastern North and South Carolina. A couple of boxes showing up here for one little flash flood warning box there. In South Carolina between Charleston and Columbia. Earlier there were a couple of warnings, but those are gone. Some special marine warnings off the coast of Georgia. We've got a few severe thunderstorm warnings popping up in parts of Mississippi and nothing in Florida. I mean, there are some cells there, but there's nothing severe. And then you have this line. Now, there were a lot of more severe thunders a couple of hours ago in and around the Chicago area and around Green Bay. There were quite a few severe thunderstorm warnings. Now they're just kind of down to one, and this line looks like it may have already passed its peak intensity as it extends from about Green Bay on southward to Chicago, and then further south to the Kentucky, Illinois, Missouri state, tri-state area there, and westernmost Tennessee. And a little bit of shower activity and a couple of thunderstorms going on in parts of Colorado. I see a couple of tornado warnings right on the Colorado-New Mexico border, and another one that pops up there in northwest Texas. The Storm Prediction Center, as we take a look for tonight, hold on, it's a day 3. Let's go back. Sorry about that. So,
by the way, Tom Contino on the chat board must have gotten in late, Joe, or didn't hear you at the initial start of the show. He says, can't stand the humidity. I can only imagine how sweltering it must be for Joe Cioffi in Georgia. This is awful, isn't it, Joe?
It's not. A
It's
78
not.
was my high today. I think my high yesterday was 80. What I think was 86, and it was blue sky and sunshine just pretty much most of the day. It's not oppressive at all. Not here.
Yeah.
Not where I am. It's been lovely so far this summer. I've just gotten to 90 degrees once the other day, a couple of days ago, and that
Yep.
was it. Here's your risk areas tonight. Some of it's already played out. The area that's probably not done yet is in northwest Texas and into Colorado and New Mexico. We have a severe thunderstorm watch that's up in that section of the risk zone. Tomorrow, we're looking at enhanced risk in the Western Plains. We've got enhanced risk in Colorado and western Kansas, slight risk going all the way up into southeastern Montana, southeastward to Oklahoma. General thunderstorms being indicated up and down the East Coast, but I suspect it'll be like today, few and far between, or if at all, in the northeast and northern mid-Atlantic states, and maybe scattered stuff as you go into the southeast and down to Florida and across the Gulf. That would not be unusual. And then on day 3, now, there's two things I want to point out about day 3. One is, except for the Southwest, just about the entire country's under general thunderstorm risk. There's a slight risk eastern Colorado across Kansas, western Missouri, and Oklahoma. WPC, now, I'm thinking on Friday, Joe, that there'll probably be some thunderstorms inland. Maybe they don't reach the coast, but there might be some scattered thunderstorms around well inland. And actually, WPC's got a marginal risk for flash flooding, which is not high. I mean, marginal risk is 5 to 15%. For northwest New Jersey, the Hudson Valley, western Mass, Vermont, New Hampshire, northern Maine, upstate New York, and eastern PA, it's a low chance. And I suppose if you get into a thunderstorm this time of year that has a habit of maybe sitting over one spot for a short period, for a long period of time, you might wind up with some local, maybe local flooding. But they are mentioning a marginal risk for Friday into Saturday.
Yes. And Miss Valerie points out, lovely, KC is in the yellow zone, and that's only a slight risk.
Right, slight risk, which would be 15 to 40, and that's in uh, the southeastern third of Kansas, southwest Missouri, northwest Arkansas, northeast Oklahoma. All these directions, my God.
And isn't so funny also, yesterday we were making a joke about, the winter will get here soon enough. They said, I can't believe some people actually making forecasts for the winter season already. And here's Tom Contito on the job for today. Josie, what are you hearing about for the winter forecast?
They're already starting. Rainfall amounts next 7 days. Now, much of what you see in the Northeast is going to be Sunday, and WPC is very bullish on rainfall amounts of 1.5 inches. The heaviest amounts will be inland, but 1.5 inches to 2.5 inches plus from eastern PA northeastward all the way up into Vermont, New Hampshire, and parts of Maine. The southern half of the U.S. at 3/4 inch to 1.5 inches, and then you get into the Gulf states and the Tennessee Valley, the lower Mississippi Valley, and parts of the middle Mississippi Valley and the Missouri River Valley in the area of 1/2 to 3/4 at least. And there's a large area of 1.5 inches to as much as, there's one little stripe here in southern Kansas that's indicating 5 inches or more. So they're very bullish there. Also along the Gulf Coast, several inches possible. And of course, when you're dealing with thunderstorms, that's when you get these situations where one spot gets some crazy amount, and then another spot not that far away gets far less or even very little. So let's bring up the upper air. Just take a look at the overall pattern. We've been trying to see if this trough is ever going to get out of the east. And the answer to that question is going to be, well, let me start from the beginning. We've been watching the developments of this upper low in northern Canada as it drops southward. It just basically drops southward west along the west side of Hudson Bay, and then just rotates and rotates and rotates. Part of it pulls up, part of it stays to the south, but we still have this fairly active east-west jet from the Pacific Northwest into the southeastern part of the U.S. And I'm just looking here in the long range. I mean, there's some signs that maybe late in the forecast period an upper high starts to build in the Tennessee Valley, but you still got that rotating upper low up in Hudson Bay. Another one forms up there. So, I suspect that the idea of this troughing in the east is probably going to last a lot longer than what models are going to try to break it down, but I suspect it may go for a longer than what models are suggesting, and that means more of the same stuff that we've been dealing with.
Yeah, it's in my experience that sometimes if the models are calling for a break in an overall pattern, the break is coming too soon. That it's going to linger for a while beyond what is being, especially if the supposed change is going to happen after, let's say, day 5 or day 7. So,
right,
we're going to be stuck with this for a while, folks.
So I'm running through the upper air, the 500 millibars to the 18,000 foot level roughly, and there's this little short wave that went through yesterday in the morning. And we're sort of in this no man's land at the moment, but you see around the Great Lakes late Thursday, you start to see a few little jet streaks. And then come Friday afternoon, there's a couple of jet streaks here running from northern Vermont down into the Catskills, western New Jersey. I think this would be indicative of maybe some scattered cells and perhaps a bit more numerous as you head into the southeast. I'm more interested in looking at what happens as we get through the weekend, because Saturday, there might be might be the same thing, the idea of some scattered showers and thunderstorms around, but much of the time it'll probably be rain-free. But Sunday, we've got a fairly active shortwave that is swinging through, and you see all the jet streaks that are showing up Sunday afternoon into Sunday night. And that is where the model is getting very bullish with regards to a bit of a complex of heavy rain and thunderstorms that it brings through. And I'll give you the radar view here. So this is today, or this was today. Let me just hang on. Let me just get to the 18Z here. So here we go. So again, some scattered stuff tomorrow. I mean, if at all. Friday, they're there, and then they kind of pop up, and there's patches here and there. This is for Friday evening on the GFS view, which shows some stuff in eastern PA down into Virginia, and then it just sort of falls apart, kind of bubbles up again on Saturday and falls apart. And then you got this little system that comes out of the Tennessee Valley. There's a low there in southern West Virginia, and then all of a sudden this area of rain blossoms out later Sunday into Sunday night. That's a substantial amount of rain that the GFS is picking up on its depiction of the radar for Sunday evening. It would be pouring in eastern PA and western New Jersey if that's correct.
Yeah, it looks like we're in for another. Well, on the 7-day outlook that you just given from WPC, QPF wise, a broad area from eastern Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York City, on up into the Hudson Valley over the next 7 days. 3 inches, projected 3 inches of QPF. So
right,
we're in for a round of wet weather.
And there's also, by the way, there's also one right behind it. So this lifts up, and there's probably a break for a little while on Monday, but then by later Monday afternoon and evening, there's another surge of downpours and maybe a few thunderstorms. I just wonder whether we might get some severe weather out of this too. Aside from, maybe heavy rain will probably be the greater risk. But there might be a couple of severe thunderstorms in the mix with either one of these disturbances, given the high dew points, given the fact that we're not going to see any real change in air mass here until these two systems go by.
Yeah. What else can I tell you?
That makes sense to you?
It makes sense to me. I promise all of you will probably, when we come back tomorrow night, we'll go a little bit longer, but
you have stuff to do.
I've got something to do, and Joe said, well, instead of just carrying the show beyond when you leave, why don't we just cut it off for tonight? So that's what we're about to do.
So yeah, we're going to wrap it up tonight, folks. We'll save Briller Jeopardy for tomorrow. Hope everybody had a really great day and have a good one for tomorrow. We'll see you back tomorrow night at 7:35 p.m. Nighty night.
Nighty night, folks.